Hey there, Virgo. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I am so grateful that you're here. Virgo, this is your new moon forecast. We do have a new moon in Virgo, your sign, on August 27th. 2022, that is going to be on Saturday, and we're just going to take a little bit of time here to look at the major astrological themes that are probably going to be the most relevant for the Virgo rising, Virgo sun, Virgo moon person throughout, the month of September, right? So we're going to look at the major themes from this new moon all the way up to our next new moon, which is going to be the 25th of September. It's going to be in Libra. So we're really looking at the home stretch here of the season. So we're going to be looking certainly through the full moon on the 10th of September. We're going to take just a little bit of time to talk about this September 3rd date. Just in relation to you, Virgo, I'm going to speak way more about the date itself and the general astrology on Friday's broadcast. It's going to be 10 a.m. Eastern. It's on Friday morning. It's going to be on YouTube. So if you are not subscribed, if you are not following us on social media through Facebook or Telegram, all of this stuff is linked in the description box below this video. But that way you can know when we go live and you can be part of the chat. And I'll be talking about this September 3rd thing in more detail then. But we will look at it because it's actually part of the lunar cycle. It's going to be when the first quarter moon is in a square to the sun, is on that same day. So, this is going to take us through the equinox for sure. And then right from there is really our balsamic moon. It'll be the last 3 days and then moved into the new lunar cycle. So we're finishing out a lot of cycles coming into the equinox, which is very late on the 22nd of September here on the East Coast. So across the pond, it'll be the 23rd when the sun enters Libra, 0 degrees Libra. Mercury is going to be conjunct the sun right after that at 0 to 1 degree Libra in its retrograde. So what those Kazimis, right, in an air sign, no less. I mean, the brilliance of the perfect form, right, and the knowledge to apply that to equilibrium and balance is going to be very bright and very much turned inwardly in its retrograde. So lots of things to talk about, Virgo. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here. And if you're interested in getting a personal reading, I'll show you some promotional material at the end, or you can get on the email list or check out my website. There's a special lunar transit forecast available for Virgo and Pisces people. So regardless of where you find your Virgo, this is primarily read from the Virgo rising standpoint, right, where the current astrology is in relation to the Virgo houses. But really, anybody with strong Virgo, progressed Virgo, anything like that, there's going to be something here for you. And truly, Virgo and Pisces, right, these are inseparable. These couplings are inseparable from each other. So the Pisces rising, sun, moon person, you can apply these this information in this reading to your own, just kind of flip it around and know that the full moon is going to be when we do the Pisces forecast, because the full moon will be in your sign. And so that will impact Pisces people pretty strongly. But even this new moon in Virgo, it's kind of, even if you have a Pisces sun or a moon, not necessarily a rising sign, still the Virgo energy is going to have a direct and polarizing impact on the Pisces person. So you can't really separate these polarities from each other. And Virgo, out of all the signs, the Virgo person is the individual who is very committed to perfecting the form of balance between polarity, right? It's not so much the total dissolution, because that's Pisces. And Pisces is is the opposite of Virgo, right? These things are inseparable from each other. So there is a reason, right? There is a goal or a place to get to for the Virgo person to oftentimes be very meticulous and almost controlling in some ways about how things are organized in order to maximize the blending of polarity, the energy of integration, to have this internalized transmutation through a lot of the times is just like putting one foot in front of the other. So Virgo time of year in a growing cycle, like a seasonal growing cycle, is the time where the plant is growing the fruit, right? It is flowered, has been pollinated, right? You can see that this is across all life forms, right? This very significant process of life growing and evolving, and the process of polarization and friction that brings together duality and polarity and creates the energy for this change, transmutation, right? And in the case of a plant, the fruit is, the maturing of the fruit is, brings the seed of the next cycle to bear, right? At the harvest, which is Libra or the September equinox. So I've also been pulling in quite a few recently Draco starseeds in batches readings that are either involved with this transit with the new moon in Virgo. It's going to be at 4 to 5 degrees Virgo, very close to Alpha Draconis. The fixed star Alpha Draconis is 7 to 8 degrees of Virgo. So you may find yourself with Draco starseed markings if you've had a reading from me or someone else that does that, and you know that you have this Draco component. And I've been seeing a number of people, especially the synastry readings, actually the Starseed synastry. I might as well just show you that flyer now, just so you know it's still available. These Starseed synastry readings are just blowing my mind with how powerful they are. So synastry is the astrology of relationship, and the overlay of the starseed overlap with these synastry readings has opened up people's connections at a karmic level and through a multidimensional perspective that is just giving so much texture in people's personal journeys and in their relationships with family members, their spouses, their partners. If you have children, are a starseed and they live with you and you're trying to understand them, this is really this has been very beneficial so far. So I'm just offering a sale. You can go to the website, catalystenergies.net. It's in the description box, and you can book this. So what I've noticed is there are a lot of Draco starseeds as well that are coming in these batches. So I know that there's going to be a big part of this dynamic that's coming forward. So that's something that I'm going to talk more about in the general astrology broadcast on Friday, which is tomorrow. So, but just know that if you already have some of those connections, or you suspect maybe you do, and you're a Virgo person, and also know that there are other markings for Draco, right? It's 7 to 8 degrees. Pisces is also opposite Draco, and is still very much part of the starseed origin and lineage, and is red. Even if that particular resonance at a soul level is somehow in opposition to your current journey. And that happens a lot in these starseed readings. You see how intricate the web of our own soul's blueprint really is when you start looking at it from this perspective. So as we go through this, when there are major Draco activations, when the sun crosses over Alpha Draconis right after this new moon, we'll see Venus cross into Virgo during this time, and also cross Alpha Draconis at the time of, I believe it will be the equinox. No, that's not it. It's going to be the full moon. Sorry. The full moon when Mercury stations retrograde, when Venus is at Alpha Draconis, and then the moon will be full, right? The Pisces full moon. So, that's going to be exciting, and there's just going to be a lot of these issues around what do we do with the perfection of form, right? Because the Draco dynamic is that they never really got past the obsession of perfecting their own form for their own sustainment. They never wanted a mature fruit to render a seed, right? They just wanted to keep growing as a fruit endlessly, which is so unnatural. Yet it's something that they have chosen to use their incredible perfection, their drive to perfect form, and their mastery over their knowledge to put it to some sort of use in some way is substantial and phenomenal. And the Draco starseeds that I see, I mean, these people are seriously have access to some very potent wisdom and serpent type of medicine. And the Draco they're going through their own process, right? Based on their relationship to this galaxy and certainly to this planet and how they have been just a destructive force. And so many of the Draco starseeds are for all different reasons, bringing that resonance in through the human channel and experience as part of their soul's journey, part of our collective journey right now. And there's a lot of remorse, but there's also an incredible amount of power and wisdom to this dragon energy. It's potent, and it is the Kundalini, right? And it is the spark of divinity in the process of creating life that they have been so intent on discovering. So when you take yourself in the Draco way into more of the Virgo Pisces axis around the for instance, the Christ avatar, Jesus as the avatar of the Christ, right? Of the Piscean energy of brotherhood, compassion, universal love, connection to source, the law of one, right? The God of monotheism, right? Or the singular source of all. This is represented in Pisces. And so that Mary Magdalene, that kind of Jesus, commitment to service is the other side of that. And so there's a lot of these themes that are coming up. Now, what is really challenging everybody, and Virgo, this is into these areas that have to do with who you are and the society that you contribute everything to, right? Virgo as the subjective experience here, and then Mars. Mars is in square to this whole new moon. And boy, in the sign of Gemini, Mars is going to be here for a while, because Mars is going to get to the last 5 degrees of Gemini and station retrograde. And so it's going to be a while with Mars in the realm of collecting of knowledge and conceptual framework patterns, but truly just polarization in concepts and in the mind and in even information. And so without the impeccable balance of the Virgo person having really done some serious work since we were in Gemini season and throughout the 10th, 11th, and 12th house, and really allowing some things to come to fruition in terms of the unseen and the karmic realms. And Venus truly is kind of finishing up this cycle in terms of the embodied experience of passion and strength and a sense of real solar magnetism, right? Like it's the magnetic field of the sun and stars that gets all bunched up, and then flares will push out from behind that magnetic field that is not that is not balanced, right? And because it gets all bunched up just like scar tissue does. And then all that energy coming from inside the sun has to still release. And those solar flares will often come as a result of this. And so Venus in the you may find that Virgo, especially like in Leo, right? It's going to be in the areas of what is unseen, or a sense of collective combust energy and creativity, right? And pride and a sense of thrill and excitement. These are all these Leo energies, right? The lion. And so and certainly with Venus here, I mean, I think that many Virgo people are still kind of basking in this embodied state, kind of in the meaning of this from a spiritually collective level, and establishing a real embodied meaning to this space. And so But with this new moon, Virgo, this is about a new levels of consciousness opening up, right? This new moon, and very instinctual, right? There's no light to the moon. There's lots of sun, but there is no light to the moon, right? We are really operating on a very deep instinctual level, emotionally, at a new moon, just setting the seeds, right? Nothing is happening yet. We just are feeling into the potency of life itself within our own emotional landscape. Okay, so things are just now starting to grow, Virgo, a new level of consciousness, and you can assist that by certainly setting intention to allow yourself to grow along these lines, to realize these opening of new levels of consciousness. And again, the Virgo person is doing this primarily as the result of their perfectly blended self, and someone who has impeccable attention to detail, especially about yourself if you're a sun, moon, or rising. So Mars is going to be challenging this as like Superman up here in the your 10th house of your career and your professional life, your public self, right? Your contribution to society. Mars is like, let's get on with it already. Be very discerning, Virgo. Remember, it is you that starts the whole process that allows that a Gemini 10th house, also ruled by Mercury, to be an output of new ideas, and it really depends on where your 10th house is, Virgo, but the idea of the output towards ideas, new concepts, and output in terms of identifying the opportunity to utilize the polarity or to establish a link to new information, right? There's the sense here that to really act on one side or the other too. That's the other thing, is that Mars is going to act out of instinct. Well, if you have a new moon in your sign that's like, hey, a whole new levels of consciousness are coming online for the Virgo person especially, then acting on instinct may be something deeper than just the trigger into like, I got to change this right now. Okay, and you may find, Virgo, that this is not you necessarily acting, but the energy of outward activity, warriorship, soldiers, law enforcement, action is happening in terms of these establishments in your life. So it depends on what this 10th house represents for you. But there will be, for the Virgo person, Mars getting, and especially Mars being in an air sign now in Libra, and will station retrograde in Libra, as we're going to see. Also ruling your 10th house and ruling your first house. It's going to be essential that your mind wraps around what the perfect equilibrium is in terms of the world around you. Because if not, boy, you can get really pulled into something that has not fully come online about you're acting on a part of yourself that is now coming out of pure imagination right now. And that's not a negative thing. This is new levels of consciousness about who you are coming up and coming online, and Mars is ready to act. Okay, so there will be ways to utilize this energy constructively rather than forcefully in this area, but you can bet your ass that this is going to be forcefully in a very public way for some people, in terms of pick a side and let's get on with it. Like, let's play the game, right? And coming out the gate, like, I'm ready to really play the game. Like, I'm ready to act, right? Let's go. Patience. And that's something that a Virgo person needs, because we gotta get to the full moon just to get an idea, so you can feel into, okay, is this the relationship that is, do I feel a sense of real extraordinary performance here in this relationship as a result of how I'm identifying with myself? Because the sun's going to move in, the sun's in your sign in Virgo. So this is just this general feel. And like I said, Venus is still in Leo. That is going to be, it looks like in a square, just coming off a square to Uranus, just stationed retrograde here up in your 9th house of belief systems. So it's like there's already been something new kind of emerging, but now that we're retrograde, it's like kind of sinking back into the ocean. But that does not mean that things are not changing and shifting and plates are moving and all this other stuff under the surface. There just might be some more restructuring happening to the framework of belief system or doctrine or dogma or whatever understanding this represents for you. And Venus is, it's like, okay, maybe I can, maybe this means I can just hang out here, right? I can just have a nice time on my houseboat out here in the woo, right? And not to say that that's a bad thing, right? That I can just like kind of be out here in the astral, or I can just be kind of in that zone of passion and joy and out to sea a little bit because things have calmed down a little bit. It's not as calm as you think. It's like hitting an iceberg or like not seeing the obstruction under the surface, but thinking that maybe you can still sail into it. How are you going to do that if things are still moving under the surface? And that has a lot to do with the collective consciousness. That has a lot to do with the sudden changes in the materium, the fixed earth of Taurus. So something to consider, Virgo, as well, that this is part of the story for you. So we will look at this 3rd of September just because it's coming up a lot and show you why it probably is. And it really just comes down to this pretty awesome mystic rectangle that's happening. Not to mention that the first quarter moon will be squaring the sun, and it'll be a mutable square. So that's actually, shows a lot of malleability and flexibility, which for a Virgo person is like hell, or can be exactly the, the space in which to truly be mutable and find oneself able to adapt really easily, even to what is being drawn up from underneath the surface of who you are, right? And so it takes a certain type of person in Virgo. I mean, we all have a Virgo and the 6th house in all of our charts, right? And that's primarily where the Virgo type of energy expresses itself, of like, what is it that we get our shit together? It's just Virgos are just like always wanting to have their shit together and will do anything they can to have their shit together. The thing is that it has to be for a purpose that allows you to release yourself to the relationship or to relationship with life, to fully allow spirit to enter. And so if you're too anal retentive about it and yourself, you're not going to allow this in. And boy, oh boy, when Neptune stations direct and comes back to this point, you're going to break. It's going to just like break the dam, right? Or you're going to find like, you're not going to have the proper channels, or you're just, it's just going to overtake you because there is not enough form in the face of the deluge that your identity will be able to maintain itself. So, and that is the paradox, is it not? So, here's this mystic rectangle in the 3rd, and also with the moon in the 4th house. This is where it'll be a square. So the first quarter moon is always where there's this crisis of this crisis of action. What am I going to do? It's an external kind of like, I got to reorganize myself now that there is some challenge to this new moon. So there is illumination emotionally, but it's not the full picture yet. It's only halfway made available to us consciously. So how we feel, it's not quite there yet, but boy, it is really, really just roiling under the surface here. It's like magma, and it's in the emotion. And so there is a Virgo, this capacity to feel very deeply into this like psychic gestation, or the magma just like churning, and new elements literally being formed within the earth. And that's actually a relatively new conception in like planetary sciences, as far as I understand it, that up until very recently it was considered, the law, or the primary theory is that all the elements, the inorganic elements that we find on our planet, they all originated from, supernovas and massive stellar explosions. But there's been research that suggests that those types of reactions can happen within a planet, and it can create its own elements, right? And through the process of catalyzation, right? Through fusion to create new elements. And heat is a primary catalyst for these types of things. So think about it that way, new elements being formed, and it's like emotional. It's in the personal power realm of the Virgo person, right? And it comes from the conflict itself being what creates the energy for this way more powerful type of experience that is wisdom, not just knowledge. See, Mars is ready to act on knowledge, and there's nothing wrong with that, Virgo, because this Mercury rules this area too, so it can keep itself in that like fully concrete, logical, rational aspect in terms of the professional life, whereas the individual is highly intuitive as part of the balancing act. And so recognizing that it's Sag and the conflict and the spark of the friction itself that is creating new elements, right? This is a place where you can tap into Virgo, especially in terms of Sagittarius is really about like understanding in the big picture and meaning and abstraction, symbols, right? I mean, this is the ninth house all day. And so what's interesting about this mystic rectangle, right? You're going to see how all the containment in a positive way, a harmonious containment of what otherwise is this double opposition. And the other opposition is Mercury and Jupiter, which is exactly the opposite, which corresponds exactly to the opposition with the moon and Mars in terms of the signs, right? Gemini and Sag, you have Mercury and Jupiter, right? The mind and understanding, knowledge and wisdom, and information, understanding. And this is the other big opposition that is happening on the 3rd. And so there's a sense of the mind really responding to some antagonism. And for the Virgo person, it's going to come right into like physical value, or like right at home, right, in what's valuable to you, or right into what you identify as your objective reality, what you have to use, what is yours, what are your assets, what's your value, what's your energy, what is yours, right? Inherently yours. What is the planets? The second house can be about that as well. And so a sense of antagonism to simultaneously guard and also protect at the same time. It's like a guardian energy of this Libra thing that has to do with the need to exist in two places at once outside of yourself. Whereas Jupiter is existing in two places within yourself as the overall, it's like a bubble or a dome around this in the realm of shared resources. It's so interesting. It's so interesting how this is going to challenge the Virgo person in terms of where does your power really come from, okay? Because there's a lot of different things that are surrounding this now that are, showing challenge around where the power comes from, where it's released, and resource, right? Like energy itself and how it's generated. And Jupiter in this retrograde right now in Aries is like, in some ways it feels like it's Jupiter itself is like the bellows, right? That is closing, that is like contracting, that is like blowing the air onto the spark, but eventually it'll run out and then it'll have to expand again. And that'll be when Jupiter stations direct in Pisces. Right? And there'll be a really big expansion in this area. But in the meantime, it's like, okay, just trusting that even though we're contracting, we're bringing these two poles together. And what we're going to do is then pull them apart, and it's going to expand just like Jupiter does and expand that area of shared resource. And so, but it has a lot to do with what you put into that. And there is something below the surface, Virgo, that needs some more time to mature, right? This is about accepting that part of who you are is about the maturing process. You yourself are mature. You understand what it means to be analytical and intuitive and how to make that work together. Mars is going to be so like, let's get on with it. And if you have been impeccably balanced this whole time, this might be a great opportunity for you to act in that really instinctive self-preservation way in terms of the realm, because this is really where you release your energy, is through the Gemini characteristics of mind and knowledge and research and empiricism, all of these things. So, and ideas, right? Working with ideas. So I think that there is such a the antagonism is going to be very real. And this sense of needing to act on something, take action, towards some sort of revolutionary thing is going to also be very strong. And it's going to be, recognizing these underlying things, right? Getting into more of the first quarter square and just leaning into eventually how uncomfortable it is. It's just like, well, I have, I can just, unveil, just by being myself. Like I am in who I am, and how I'm identified with myself is a trained individual to be able to do this. But it's more than just the ego involved, which is what the first house really is about. You have to, you really generate and draw power from the meaning of relationships in general. And that is changing because of Uranus. And that is a big draw for the Virgo person, because the ninth house is where the North Node is. But there's more to do here. So the third is going to be antagonistic. But boy, if you can see how this antagonism both ways is, and this tension both ways is exactly like harnessing power, and there's ways to do it, I think that this is actually a really good thing. It may not seem like it, but I'm telling you right now, whatever it is an opportunity to learn how to be your own toroidal field in some ways. So when we get to the full moon on the 10th, oh boy. Oh my gosh. Let me make sure here that we're all, yeah, there we go, all formatted. So when we get to the full moon on the 10th, my oh my, now for both Virgo and Pisces, this is going to show both of you a lot about who you are, and how, what your feelings are telling you about the nature of your relationships, whatever they are, and has your inner guidance and your ability to establish some sort of deep inner guidance by listening to, your intuition, has that created a shared emotional experience in your relationships that is kind of like a spectacular event? Or is it just a bunch of hot air, and what you're really listening to in yourself is just, again, your ego, right? And not being able to discern the difference between your higher guidance and what is truly just your ego. And I think this full moon is going to show both the Virgo and Pisces people the answer to that question, right? Because you're going to be able to feel it in either yourself or who you are and the nature of your relationships. You will feel it. You will know, is this an experience that's pulling us all together into one common, it's like going to the revivalist tent, and it doesn't matter if you're in the tent, if you're the ringleader, if you're in the audience, whatever this represents to you, it's about the shared experience between all of these things together. And I think at the same time, that feeling, that culminating moment of feeling in your sensitivity to relationship, the form of the relationship, is also going to be a function of that inner guidance of your own higher self, right? Coming through your subjective experience of who you are, and it's gonna let us know, really. And for the Virgo person, it's coming right into the realm of identity. That's the full moon. So let's just for the sake of it, I mean, we'll look towards the 11th for sure, because this is going to be when it looks like the sun is coming into a trine with Uranus, right? Talk about shock and awe and unexpected things, and the the sudden breakup of the structure of belief system for the Virgo person, right? Whatever that is, belief, understanding, the wisdom, the pattern of the overall meaning that's woven together into a story or a mythology or a narrative, or a symbol, right? This is, the function of mythology really is to provide this framework here, this pattern, this resonant pattern of meaning. Uranus in its retrograde, like I said, it's kind of sinking back into the ocean, or maybe there's more going on under the surface now in this way. The changes are, the restructuring or the spiritualized consciousness is more accessed now by going back into that space, perhaps. But the trine to the sun is kind of like, well, now that we know that there's a space for something new to grow, it's like, I don't know, you see now where you're headed, right? You see now that there is a goal, right? That there's a spiritual goal, especially for the Virgo person, in terms of developing yourself and identifying with who you are, that allows for, it's like everybody at a swim meet, right? Everybody is individually swimming to meet this goal, but it fulfills the whole group. And that spiritualized consciousness of Uranus, even in its retrograde, it's hard to understand, right? It's not something that the conscious mind can really wrap itself around. This is about the third eye opening, and you're like, oh, that picture, oh, that consciousness, the cosmic consciousness, the collective that I'm part of. And Uranus is how, where we connect into that. On the 11th, having this trine, I mean, the identity, the spiritual and individual identity of the Virgo person, I mean, seeing the goal of whatever transpires in this way, it is very grounded, very stabilized, and shows, there's like an emulation in some way. Now, take that in its total opposite direction, and you'll see how this can be used in order to emulate a certain pathway that has been done over and over and over again, and is stabilized or connected harmoniously to the agent of sudden change in the material reality. So there's also something there to keep in mind. And on the 11th. But for the Virgo person, it's just like, you as a person, putting yourself into, it's for all of us. I'm putting myself in this identification with this subjective experience of who I am towards what is going to emerge anew in this idea of social meaning and value, right? And so you can kind of almost think back to where that first quarter moon in Sag was, where you're like, feel so deeply into what newness is developing under the surface, just tapping into it. The 17th is where we're going to get our third quarter moon. It's going to be in Gemini. I'd say at this point, you're going to start having a lot more personal connection over here to what is happening in this Gemini in 10th house, and maybe even more emotionally moved by it, but also not necessarily, you may find your emotions or your feelings very stimulated when the moon crosses over Mars during that time. But in general, it's going to be in a square on the other side of things with your with the Virgo sun, and the sun will be opposite Neptune in Pisces. Okay, so actually, if we just go back like a day so we can see it. And this is the second time that Mercury is in an opposition will come into opposition with Jupiter, because it has stationed retrograde by this point. So the full moon, like I said, Mercury stations retrograde at 9 degrees of Libra, and that's when Venus crosses over Draco at the full moon. So now we're looking at the sun opposite Neptune, what it's going to really take to to fully give yourself in service to your community, so much that you are remembered multiple generations after, right? That you hold the resonance of what motivated you to be of service, right? It was more than just you, right? And opposite Neptune, I think this is really, again, about the ego, the individual consciousness, what it's going to really take for the Virgo person to withstand, like I said, the deluge that is meant to purify those relationships in general, down to the very basic essence. And now that Venus is in Virgo as well, there is so much more just meaning, so much more warmth, so much more just sensitivity to the value of who you are, and really the value of who you are under the surface, the things that you do, the daily activities that you invest in yourself, I mean, are just going to be that much more accessible to you during this time. And so, that's really going to be kind of the backup as you may put on that face of just like, I am in total service to, and I am the person that steps into this path of service in opposition to the deluge of purification, right? It's very cathartic, and it's within, right? So this is the retrograde of Neptune that eventually in its prograde later down the line, crossing this point, is going to be when like the flood really just washes through. This is so much about like, what does it feel like in terms of our own internalized experience when the fog kind of clears away and you're like, well, there's kind of willful ignorance now, right? If you're really not seeing things for what they are, like it's very deeply entrenched in the fantasy of it all. So this is maybe a little bit of a wake-up call about who you've been and the fantasy and how it's influenced your sensitivity to the world around you. So that's something to consider, some waking up, right? And some light shining on the surface of the ocean here, which can be very blinding. Right? And you can also find yourself like really doing that, in terms of your relationships as well, which I think is why this full moon is going to be very important, to make sure that you're not necessarily doing that if that's not what you want to be doing in your relationships. But you also may find yourself being like a beacon of hope for people as they are experiencing this washover, or the relationship itself. What else is happening? So you can see Venus is going to be coming into, it's just past its square with Mars. And so again, the value of who you are is primary here, even though Mars is like, let's march on into this project, this mission. And the moon will be like, yes, I can feel the power of, the being able to release through the realm of ideas and information and knowledge. You have got to be balanced first, Virgo. And so much of what this cycle is about is for you to do that. Now, Venus also looks like at this point is coming into, she's soon going to come into, the same trine with Uranus as well. And, embodying that actual experience of emulating rather than competing, right? I am working in alignment with this particular practice or this routine or just this version, of who I am, or the subjective experience of who I am, because I am attempting to make it better for everybody. But there's a lot of self-discipline here that I think with Venus, you'll finally be like, oh, I see now. And it feels actually kind of good to do this. And again, this will be part of finding a sense of inner stabilization while Uranus is destabilizing something like a belief system or an understanding of meaning or big picture. And this also has to do with advanced training and foreign travel and shamanic journeying and mystical travel too. So that also is part of the equation here for Virgo, because these are areas that discernment is really important to have about. Let's see. Let's look at the equinox, and then we will finish up this broadcast here for Virgo. And just kind of look at how the rest of this period is going to go. So we see, before we get to the equinox, on the 22nd of September, which, the equinox itself, the sun passing over 0 degrees Libra, it's going to be late, like 9 p.m. or 9 p.m., I believe, on East Coast of the United States. So we know that's going to be happening. Mercury is moving in its retrograde now back through Libra into Virgo again, and is going to be conjunct with the sun right after that. So they're going to both be at 0 to 1 degree of Libra. which is your second house, right? So this is the world around you, and establishing and identifying and establishing your identity within the world around you in perfect equilibrium and balance. This is so important. What else is happening during this time is that the moon and Saturn in an opposition to your 12th and 6th house. Now, Saturn has been in what is usually the Virgo house, the 6th house, just holding it down. Like this is where the matrix of reality truly is in, the realm of the everyday organization for the Virgo person. Now, in its retrograde, it has been pretty ruthless, and you may have felt like a lot of pressure to keep, to have a really foundational type of routine here, or just to get it all like organized in a way that can never be broken. And maybe the retrograde has been a very powerful test of how strong and secure these systems really are for you, and what it means for your own personal challenge, your healing, and truly just getting your shit together. That is the 6th house in a nutshell. And because it's in these challenges and healing crises and hidden enemies and all that stuff that come out, and truly when you are going under the surface to draw resources from the soil, right? You are going into the realm of under the surface of who you are and society, and drawing the resources you need. So this can go both ways. It can get too much. You could like feel the pressure of it kind of cracking, or not allowing any flexibility here, which it's something to consider. And I think the moon opposition is just like, don't lose sight of your feeling in the realm of the unseen, the collective unconscious, the dreams, the fantasy, the realm of the astral realm, right? Outside of time and space. Don't forget about that. I think it's really going to be, and to not forget, or to not, to make sure to maintain a sense of really strong, powerful sensitivity to, the natural forms of energy that are coming through in this way, so that, again, you're not like, relying so much on just what you can control, okay, Virgo, because Saturn is kind of like drawing that energy over there. But this moon opposition definitely feels to me like, hey, there's magic over here. Don't forget about that. And it's in a T-square to Uranus, which is just perfect because Uranus does rule Aquarius, but is also in this 9th house of where you take the mystical journey. And so maybe this is where you release that tension up here in the mystical journey, in the cosmic vistas, in maybe going on a foreign trip or somewhere exotic. And that can mean a lot of different things, or advanced training, higher education, and being willing to kind of go with the disruption or the unexpected, or be willing to follow the unconventional pathways within yourself in order to establish a new set of parameters or routines or something like that. So this is all happening as the sun is coming into 0 degrees Libra with Mercury, and then you have Venus kind of right behind it in this really crucial degree of Virgo, which is has to do with really just putting on the armor of God, right? And it's not really about protection as much as stepping into a royal office, or you're putting on the breastplate of the crown, so to speak, not as like a ruler, but as a servant of those, of what's come before you, and be an agent of that in order to, establish a sense of strong willpower and character, right? It's really about like characterization in a lot of ways. So there's a lot of patience here, and there's a lot of embodied kind of like, oh, okay, it'll feel good to you to really establish this within yourself, this sense of discernment and intuition as well as analysis, and to trust your body, right? To trust your body and trust yourself, for your body and your embodied self to be kind of like the agent of, what to do, right? This is going to be pretty cool, I think. Don't forget about the magic. It can get so dense over here for the Virgo person with Saturn here to be like, it is just, you have to, if you don't control everything, you don't control anything. And it's like Saturn in its retrograde is like, listen, you can't actually control every single voice in the galaxy here. All you can do is control your own. And this is where the magic happens, right? And maybe a willingness to, again, kind of go into the unconventional patterns within yourself about, what do I believe? I think that is going to be really, really powerful for Virgo. So, and then we come into our new moon, which is going to be at 3 degrees Libra in your second house, which is a new day, shows that everything has changed. And I feel like that the Virgo people are going to see a lot of really powerful change in their actual everyday lives and how that impacts their belief systems about them during this time, more so than maybe other people. I guess we're going to have to see how it all unfolds. So, Virgo, I'm just going to leave it there for you for this new moon broadcast and astrology forecast. So thank you so much for being here. I really, truly appreciate each and every one of you, and not just for being here and participating, but also just for being on Earth and being part of this process. Oh my gosh, Virgo, you have, I almost forgot about you because I was like, oh, Virgo's got it, but that's not, Virgo needs, I think, to know that it is the full stream of the collective unconscious that really enters through this unity consciousness. And so it does matter. There's something that Virgo is working towards as well. And moving past this Draco aspect of like just trying to live forever is part of one of the biggest lessons I think that the Draco Starseeds are bringing forward, and to really truly experience the majesty and the magic and the beauty, and how you can still have oneness even in this physical material dimension as a spiritual being. So it's really, really powerful. So if you're interested in your own chart, if you're a Virgo, Sun, Moon, or Rising person, or Pisces, Sun, Moon, or Rising person, the lunar transit forecast from my website is on sale for you. So you just go to the website. It's on the homepage to book for this particular sale if you're a Virgo or Pisces person. So I just want to share that with you. So thanks, guys. I truly appreciate each and every one of you so much. I'll see you on the Catalyst Astrology forecast on Friday, the 26th, I believe. We'll talk a lot more of the general astrology if you're there. And I thank you so much. Bye, Virgo.